He called her old, laughed, and it crushed her. Martha Turner, a quiet widow in her 60s, had always been the backbone of her family, until the day her grandson, Cody, spat the word boomer at her, dismissing her with a cold sneer. But Martha didn't cry. She didn't shout. She simply walked to her desk, opened her safe, and froze the college fund she'd worked her whole life to build for him. The next morning, Cody found out the hard way. No more easy access, no more entitlement. Martha wasn't just holding a purse anymore. She was holding her ground. And when Cody demanded answers, her decision would speak louder than any apology. "I'm curious, where in the world are you joining us from? Drop your city or country in the comments and make sure you're subscribed for all the latest updates." He sneered, "Shut up, boomer." And I froze. The eggs hissed gently in the skillet, a low sizzle that usually gave Sarah comfort. Morning sun stretched across the kitchen floor, filtered through gingham curtains she'd stitched herself decades ago. She wore her navy robe, hair pulled back, the same way she always did when making breakfast for her daughter and grandson. It was the rhythm that grounded her. A spoon scraping the pan, the scent of coffee drifting through the air. She placed a stack of plates on the table just as Ryan, her 17-year-old grandson, slouched into the room, barefoot, phone in hand, hoodie up. No good morning, not even a glance. "Eggs or pancakes?" she asked gently, keeping her tone light. Ryan rolled his eyes. "Neither, just protein bars. Don't need old people food." His mother, Teresa, entered next, already in heels, to-go mug in hand. "Mom, I'll just grab something later. Big meeting this morning." Sarah smiled softly, hiding the small deflation in her chest. "Of course." As she turned back to the stove, Ryan muttered under his breath, sharp, casual, aimed to wound. "Just shut up, boomer." The words sliced through the quiet like glass through warm butter. Sarah stopped stirring. The kitchen held its breath. Teresa froze mid-sip. Even the dog paused under the table. Sarah turned slowly. "What did you just say?" Ryan didn't look up from his screen. "You heard me." It wasn't the insult itself. It was the flippancy, the total absence of remorse. Like she wasn't a person with memories, with sacrifices layered in every corner of this house. She was just a relic. Silence fell over the room, heavy, hot. Sarah's hand trembled as she placed the spatula down. She didn't shout, didn't cry. She simply walked to the counter drawer, the one by the spice rack, and opened it. Inside, amid recipes and coupons, was the most recent statement from Ryan's college fund. She hadn't looked at it in weeks. The numbers hadn't changed. But something in her had. She stared at the bold balance. 5 figures she'd tucked away quietly for years, even when money was tight, even when she'd gone without. Ryan had no idea. Not that she needed him to know. Until now. She folded the paper back into its envelope, then walked to the hall where her phone lay charging. She picked it up, thumb hovering over the screen. The contact was already saved. Gail, financial advisor. Her thumb hesitated. Revenge? No, this wasn't that. This was reclamation. She typed, "Freeze Ryan's education fund indefinitely." Her pulse tapped against her ribs, but her spine stayed straight. Guilt bloomed at the edges of her resolve. He was a teenager, angry, confused. But that word, boomer, wasn't just about age. It was dismissal. It was stripping her of history, of identity, of worth. She'd earned that money, every penny, and she would not bankroll cruelty. Her phone buzzed almost instantly. Gail. "It's done, but he'll notice." Sarah stood mad. Elle in the hallway, her phone lit in her hand. From the kitchen, she heard the fridge door slam. Ryan mumbling again. Teresa's heels clicking toward the front door, but the noise was distant now because the next storm had just begun. In the silence of her hallway, Sarah's phone buzzed again. This time, Ryan. One new text. "Did you mess with my college account? What the hell, Grandma?" Sarah stared at the screen, then slowly, deliberately set the phone down. Face up, unanswered. Moments later, his face drained when he opened his account. Sarah set her mug down as Ryan burst into the kitchen. Face pale, he stared at the laptop, fingers trembling. "What happened?" Teresa called from the table, voice cautious. "Breakfast forgotten." Ryan didn't respond. He checked the screen again. "It's gone. The college fund. It's frozen." Silence rippled. Teresa moved beside him. "Ryan, did you?" He looked up, voice tight with shock. "Grandma, what did you do? My college money just vanished." Sarah met his eyes, heart pounding. "I froze the fund." He blinked. "Why?" She inhaled. "Because you called me a boomer. You said I should shut up. That money was meant to support your future, not fund insults." Ryan's jaw fell open, face darkening. "You can't do that. That's my future." Teresa put a hand on Sarah's arm. "Mom, maybe talk to him." Sarah shook her head, voice steady but quiet. "This isn't punishment for money. It's consequences for disrespect. You can't treat people like that, even family." Ryan's face twisted. "You're hurting me. I can't believe you'd do this." He stepped toward her, shaking. "You're using money to control me." Sarah's stomach clenched. She felt that familiar tug of doubt. Was she being cruel? She'd nearly invited guilt back, but pushed it away, remembered her pride and her voice. She straightened. "It's not control, it's a lesson. Respect comes before entitlement. You get the fund back when you show me respect." Ryan scoffed. "Fine. When I grow up? When I'm out of this house?" Sarah's heart stuttered at the edge, but she bit back. "When you learn, not before." Teresa stepped in gently. "Ryan, Grandma's hurt. She wants kindness back. Maybe this starts something." Ryan's eyes flicked to her, unsure. "I hurt you?" Sarah's voice cracked a little. "Yes." He ran a hand through his hair. I didn't mean it. I was frustrated. The fund exists because I saved for you. That sentiment mattered more than a cheap insult." Ryan lowered his eyes. The weight of his words, his tone, it echoed in the kitchen's walls. Sarah reached for her phone. "Let me confirm I'm on solid legal ground. I don't want mistakes made." She called her lawyer. Teresa rubbed her arm. "Mom." Sarah pressed call. Her thumb hovered over the screen as Ryan searched for words. "Hello?" came the lawyer's calm voice. Sarah explained. "I froze the account. He's over 18, but it's my gift. Is this legal?" She held the phone, voice tensing. "Yes," the lawyer affirmed. "It's your asset until disbursed per your terms. You set parameters. It's within your rights." Sarah exhaled, shoulders relaxing. "Thank you." She hung up, placing the phone down like armor laid aside. Teresa pulled Sarah into a gentle hug. "You're doing what's right." Sarah let herself lean in. Ryan cleared his throat. "So, you're not selling me out, just teaching me?" Sarah offered a small, uncertain smile. "I want you respected. I am worth respect." He nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll fix this. I'll apologize and show respect." Tears glistened in Sarah's eyes. "That means everything." Ryan stared at the floor for a moment, then met her gaze. "But if Dad disagrees?" His voice lowered. Sarah felt a ripple of fear. "We deal with it together." Ryan took a breath. "Okay." They stood in shared quiet, threatened. Generations tangled in emotion. Later that evening, Sarah's phone buzzed. Her lawyer's name glowed on the screen with a message. "Watch out, his father may contest the account." Sarah stared, pulse quickening, knowing the next battle wasn't far behind. "I'm within my rights, but is it right?" Sarah sat in her tidy living room, lawyer's office on speakerphone. Her voice trembled slightly as she began. "I froze Ryan's college fund because of his insult. Shut up, boomer." I felt dismissed, hurt, disrespected. On the other line, her lawyer, Mr. Alvarez, leaned forward. "Legally, you're clear. You own the account, you set the terms, but his father could challenge, possibly file suit or claim breach of gift agreement." Sarah's heart sank. "I never thought about his father, or what come next. I just acted from pain." "Pain is valid," Alvarez replied, "but this could escalate." He outlined potential backlash, Court costs, custody ramifications if the father involves courts. You must weigh legal risk versus moral stand. She laid the phone on the coffee table, staring at her hands. The room's sunlight felt different, moral clarity dimming behind looming questions. Teresa entered quietly, placing a cup of tea beside her. "Mom, are you okay?" Sarah brushed a tear aside. "I feel righteous and terrified." Her daughter knelt beside her. "You did what you thought mattered, but consequences might spill over. He's young. His dad loves him. If that opens a legal door—" Sarah nodded with slow determination. "I know." She clenched her tea. "But I can't unfreeze it, not without saying more." "I'd write something," Teresa suggested softly. "A letter, explaining why. It shows intention, transparency." Sarah drew a breath. The thought settled in her. Yes. Later, by lamplight, she sat at her desk, stationery spread before her. By her side, a small photo of her and young Sarah, Teresa's mom, on the porch, laughing. She shivered at the intimacy of the moment. With careful strokes, she wrote, "Dear Ryan, I paused your education fund not to punish, but to—" Sarah glanced at the safe's closed door and the envelope inside. She heard Claire's next words, weighty. "We'll need that letter." Sarah's chest tightened. She knew this quiet moment was only the calm before the storm. He barged in, voice shaking. "Why'd you ruin my future?" Sarah was sorting folded towels in the hallway when the front door slammed open so hard the hinges groaned. Ryan stormed in, cheeks flushed, fists clenched, phone glowing in his hand like a flare. "Why'd you ruin my future?" he snapped, breath ragged. Sarah didn't flinch. She stepped forward, calm but braced. Teresa appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands. "Ryan, let's talk. Don't start like this." But he wasn't listening. He planted himself in the living room, face burning with disbelief. "I checked my school account, payment denied. The tuition portal says my funds are frozen. Is that you, Grandma? You did that?" Sarah stood across from him, arms gently folded. "Yes, I froze the college account." Ryan stared. "You didn't even talk to me. You just hit pause on my life." "I acted," Sarah said quietly, "because your words cut deep." "Shut up, boomer?" That wasn't just disrespect, it was dismissal. And I've earned better than that. He blinked. "It was a joke." "No, it was contempt. And I won't bankroll that." Ryan scoffed, pacing. "You're overreacting. This isn't teaching, it's sabotage." Sarah's voice remained level. "You don't get to weaponize entitlement, Ryan. That fund was a gift. But gifts need gratitude." Ryan's mouth opened, closed. Teresa stepped between them. "She's not trying to ruin you," she said softly. "She's asking to be seen, to be valued. She didn't even warn me." Sarah's voice broke a little. "I warned you for years, with my time, my cooking, my silence. But this time I needed you to hear me without the cushion." He went still. Something in him cracked. Not loud, but visible. "You think I don't appreciate it?" "I think you forgot I'm a person, not just a fixture in your life." Ryan turned away, head bowed. "Dad's going to flip." Sarah's spine stiffened. "Let him. I've already spoken to my attorney. This was legal." He rounded on her again. "But was it right?" His voice shook now. "Do you feel good watching me panic over school?" That question punched deeper than any insult. For one breath, Sarah faltered. "No," she admitted. "I feel terrible, but I also feel necessary." Teresa moved closer, her hand brushing Sarah's arm. "You're not wrong, Mom. You're brave." Sarah blinked fast. "It wasn't about revenge. It was about dignity. And if I don't teach that here, where will he learn it?" Ryan looked down, voice nearly gone. "So what now?" "There's a letter in the safe," she said. "For you. Read it. When you're ready." He stared a moment longer, then turned, muttering, "I can't deal with this right now," and marched out the door. It slammed behind him, rattling the wall clock. Silence wrapped the room like a shroud. Sarah sank into the nearest chair, trembling slightly. Teresa sat beside her, arms wrapped around her. "I didn't want to hurt him," Sarah whispered, "but I couldn't be invisible anymore." "You're not," Teresa said. "Not anymore." They sat there, hands clasped in the hush, the house holding its breath. Then Sarah's phone buzzed on the table. A school portal alert. She read it aloud. Payment declined. Tuition on hold. Contact administrator. The officialness of it shook her. The cost was no longer theoretical. She picked up the phone and held it close to her chest, pulse slow and steady. Sarah whispered, not to Teresa or Ryan, but to herself. Now he'll understand what silence really feels like. The house echoed that truth, room by room. Now they're calling me heartless online. Sarah sat at her kitchen table, phone in hand, eyes fixed on the screen. A new comment popped up on the community Facebook group. Disgusting. How dare she freeze her grandson's college fund? More followed, hot takes, outrage, memes mocking the mean grandma. Her throat constricted. Beside her, Teresa watched. There's also support, she said gently, pointing. Another comment. About time someone stood up to that entitled kid. Respect is earned. Sarah exhaled, relief and concern mingling. The firestorm had begun. The phone buzzed again, a local news alert. Grandmother criticized for freezing grandson's education funds. She clicked the link. The article painted two sides, Ryan's father's dismay, neighbors siding with Sarah's stance. Below, a reader's op-ed defended her. She has a right to dignity. Maybe the rest of us learned something. Sarah's eyes blurred. Hours later, the TV, left on Kitchen Network's daytime talk show, shifted to a news panel dissecting family money versus entitlement. Sarah heard her story narrated as cause and effect. She felt naked. In that moment, regret pricked her chest. She thought of Ryan's misery, the tears he'd tried to hide. Was she a hero or a cautionary tale? Teresa placed a supportive hand on her shoulder. You okay? She nodded slowly. True or flamed, this matters. I didn't anticipate backlash like this. She touched her letters safe. Maybe you need to say your piece, Teresa suggested softly. Your truth, without social media noise. At that, Sarah felt a spark. They moved to her desk, lingering grief and resolve coiled like vines, but she tapped open a blank doc. She wrote, I am Sarah Lane, grandma and guardian of respect. I froze Ryan's college fund not to punish, but to protect. He used words that stripped me of voice and identity. It hurt him, as it hurt me. He risked both, dead by leaving, then returning with humility and commitment. My decision was legal, but also moral. I did not act in anger. I acted for dignity. I love my grandson. I believe in second chances. I hope this action and this statement demonstrate that respect matters in families. I welcome conversation, Sarah. She read it aloud. Her voice trembled, raw, steady, clear. She inserted a signature block and photos of her safe letter and family hugs. Teresa helped format it like a heartfelt press release. This sounds like you, she assured. Sarah clicked publish. Her finger trembled on the mouse. Within minutes, notifications pinged. Supportive replies, shares, and a clear headline from the Town Herald. Grandmother speaks, respect matters. The piece painted her as principled, not cruel. Sarah's phone buzzed again, this time a text from her old friend, George. I saw the article, solid stance, call me. She smiled faintly, fatigue in her bones. I will, she texted back. For tonight, she let the world wait. Later that evening, she sank into her armchair by the window. The street was silent, lamps glowing, crickets stirring. She gazed at her reflection in the glass, eyes lined, spine straight. The phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, a call from an unknown number, displayed as George Callahan. Curious, she answered. Sarah? Came his voice, soft, nostalgic. It's George. George? She said, warmth and immediate ease greeting her. I've got something for you, he said. Your grandfather's original will, when he left the house to your family. There's a clause you'll want to read. Sarah paused, heart fluting. He continued. It's important for what you've done and what's next. The weight of legacy settled in her chest, a clause, unknown, waiting to unfold. Her breath caught. On the screen, Sarah stared at herself in the dark, framed by street lamps. She whispered into the night, "Let's see what he left behind." Holding that document shook me to the core. Sarah sat in her living room, the antique envelope trembling in her hands. Afternoon light slipped through the curtains, catching the embossed seal. She'd just arrived from meeting George Callahan at the local library, the trusted family friend who presented her grandfather's original will. Now, heart pounding, she slid it open. Her fingers traced his flowing signature. The paragraph that caught her attention was brief but thunderous. "To my daughter, Margaret, and her descendants, the education fund shall remain intact, but shall only be released at the matriarch's discretion, for purpose not just of schooling, but of character development, respect, and intergenerational dignity." Sarah found her breath in that pause. This was her mother's legacy, intended for empowerment, not mere tuition. The document trembled in her hand. Tears welled, of reverence and revelation. All those years she'd believed the fund was purely academic, but her grandfather, quiet, principled, had meant much more. She'd stumbled into that intention when she froze it, anger guiding her. Yet buried in those lines was purpose, respect. That same respect she felt slipping in every look from Ryan. Suddenly, the guilt didn't sting. It crystallized. She hadn't just frozen funds. She'd paused an inheritance meant for character and growth, and it had gone exactly where it needed to go, into a reckoning. She leaned forward. The weight of responsibility lifted, replaced by clarity. She had a choice: unleash legacy or hold her ground for its true meaning. The decision came sharply. She'd release the fund, but only if Ryan demonstrated genuine respect. Not as punishment, but as completion of the legacy. Tears slid down her cheeks, steady as rain. She gently folded the will and stood. She walked to the desk where her safe sat, door slightly ajar since the let's. Tear lay inside. She retrieved the envelope and the letter she'd penned earlier for Ryan, then closed the safe. Voice trembling, she spoke into the hush. "This is your inheritance, grandson, meant to guide, not entitle. I trusted your heart. Now I trust this fund to become what it was intended to be." She placed the documents on the desk, her finger brushing the envelope's edge. It felt right. Release with purpose. The next morning, laundry humming behind her, Sarah dialed Gail. "Hello, it's Sarah Lane. I'd like to unfreeze the fund under new terms." She paused, steadying her voice. "For respect, I want a meeting with Ryan to proceed together." As Sarah hung up, she felt the softness of resolution. She moved to the kitchen and pulled a fresh pot of tea, steam rising in quiet comfort. Teresa joined her, concern in her eyes. "Big night?" she asked. Sarah nodded. "I found the will, the fund. It's not just money, it's legacy. I want it to be everything he and I deserve." Teresa's eyes glistened. "That sounds right." Sarah smiled, tracing the rim of her mug. "He'll come back, and I'll meet him, with intention and respect." She picked up a framed photo of her mother, Margaret, smiling in spring light. Memory warmed her chest. She whispered, "This is what you meant." Later, the front door opened softly. Sarah turned. Ryan stepped in, shoulders slumped, silence trailing him. No anger, no demands, just presence. His eyes met hers, uncertain. Sarah placed the envelope on the table and motioned him forward. He stepped closer, gaze locked onto the seal. Sarah closed the distance. "This belongs to you," she said, voice steady. "It's time we use it, for the right reasons." Ryan nodded, eyes full. He didn't speak. They stood together in the quiet room, heartbeats aligned with legacy and love. Outside, the sun dipped low. Sarah felt the weight lift and realized their next steps would define more than college. She watched Ryan unfold the envelope silent, knowing respect was waiting to be claimed. He stood with tears, not rage. Ryan lingered at the edge of the dining room like he was afraid to be invited in, or worse, forgiven. His shoulders sagged beneath the weight of something heavier than guilt. Sarah looked up from her seat near the window, teacup warm in her hands, eyes unreadable. "I'm not here to argue," he said, voice rough. "I came to say something I should have said a long time ago." Sarah placed the cup gently on its saucer. Teresa stepped in from the kitchen, drying her hands on a dish towel, watching. "I'm sorry," Ryan said. The words hovered, delicate as breath. "I know it doesn't undo what I said or how I said it, but I meant what I told Mom. I was angry, at Dad, at school, at everything, and I dumped it on you." Sarah said nothing, but her eyes never left his. He kept talking. "I called you Boomer like it was a curse. Like you didn't matter, but you do, and I forgot that." Sarah exhaled softly. "I didn't freeze that account to punish you," she said. "I did it to wake you up. To show you that respect isn't just a word, it's a lifeline in a family." Ryan nodded slowly. It worked. She stood and walked to her desk, opened the drawer, and removed the same envelope from before, the one with his name on it. She held it, but didn't offer it. "There's more to this than tuition," she said. "I found your great-grandfather's will. The fund was created for education, but only if the matriarch believed it built character, too. It was always meant to be more than money." Teresa stepped forward, touched Sarah's shoulder gently. "Tell him what you need, Mom." Sarah faced Ryan fully now. "If I release the fund again, it'll be in stage on how you treat this home, this family, and me." Ryan blinked fast, clearly fighting the urge to retreat. Instead, he stepped closer. "That's fair." "There'll be rules," Sarah said. "You'll check in with me once a week. You'll do therapy. You'll volunteer somewhere this semester, something that reminds you life is bigger than your screen." He nodded, surprisingly quick. "Okay, all of it." Sarah reached into her pocket and handed him a folded note. "This is a copy of the letter I wrote when I froze the fund. I want you to read it later. Not now. Alone." He took it as if it might burn his hand, but he didn't let go. "I will." They stood close now, not as opponents, not quite as equals, but as two people choosing peace in a house that had held too much silence. Then, almost shyly, Ryan extended his hand. Sarah took it. A handshake, nothing ceremonial, but in its quiet pressure, history rewrote itself. Teresa exhaled behind them, smiling. "That's more like it." They all sat down at the kitchen table. For the first time in weeks, it didn't feel like a war room. Ryan looked down at his phone resting beside his elbow. A vibration stirred it across the table. He picked it up, eyes scanning the screen. He went pale. His lips parted. "What is it?" Sarah asked. He swallowed, then held up the screen, the bold subject line clear. "Congratulations. Welcome to Portland State University." Ryan looked at Sarah, stunned. "I got in." And Sarah knew in that instant, this wasn't the end of a feud. It was the beginning of something worth rebuilding. Her scholarship, it covers everything, but at a price. Later that evening, they sat around the kitchen table again, the glow of Ryan's college acceptance still hovering like soft light. But reality didn't wait long to settle in. Teresa refreshed her email and opened a notification from Portland State. It says here, she squinted, reading aloud, "You've been offered a partial scholarship, Ryan. It covers tuition, but with mandatory community service attached. 20 hours a week." Ryan's brows lifted. "Community service? Like cleaning parks?" Sarah reached for the paper Teresa printed out. "No," she said, eyes scanning. "It's at a local senior center, part of a new youth elder bridge program." Ryan groaned, leaning back. "Are you kidding me?" But Sarah stilled. "I know that place," she said slowly. "Sunbrook Commons. I volunteered there for years." Teresa looked up. "Mom, didn't you run their storytelling nights?" "I did," Sarah nodded. "And they're asking for a volunteer coordinator this semester. I could supervise his hours." The room went quiet. Ryan looked at Sarah, panic flickering across his face. "You want to run the program I'm forced into?" "It's not punishment," Sarah said softly. "It's opportunity for both of us." 2 weeks later, Sarah walked through the front doors of Sunbrook Commons, the familiar scent of lemon polish and lavender oil wafting through the air. She hadn't stepped inside in years, not since Margaret passed. Her fingers twitched as she signed in with the front desk nurse. Ryan trailed behind her, shoulders rigid. Inside the lounge, the residents gathered around puzzles and soft jazz. Conversations hummed like a gentle tide. One older man smiled as Sarah passed. "Look what the cat dragged in," he said with a wink. "Harold," Sarah laughed, warmth blooming. "Still pretending you hate bingo?" "You bet. Still cheating at Scrabble?" Behind her, Ryan watched silently, noting how she lit up in this space. That afternoon, they helped host a poetry circle. Sarah handed out blank pages. Ryan refilled water glasses. At first, his movements were mechanet. But when one elderly woman struggled to hold her pencil, Ryan knelt beside her. "Want me to write while you dictate?" he asked gently. The woman smiled. "That would be lovely." From across the room, Sarah watched him. She saw how he paused between lines, how he looked her in the eye when she laughed. Something shifted. He wasn't checking his phone. He was present. Later, in the break room, Sarah dabbed her eyes with a tissue. Teresa had stopped by to drop off muffins and now sat beside her. "You okay?" she asked. Sarah nodded, voice thick. "This isn't just about penance. He's learning something here I couldn't teach at home. He's learning it from you," Teresa said, "but through them." Ryan came in with 2 empty pitchers. "They want apple juice next time," he said, brushing hair from his face. Sarah chuckled, demanding crew. "I kind of like it here," he said. "Feels real." They finished the day with the seniors clapping, calling Ryan the tall one, and asking when he'd be back. He promised, a little shyly, "Next Tuesday." In the car, silence filled the ride home. But it wasn't strained. It was thick with thought. Sarah stared out the window, unsure if she was the same woman who once froze a college fund in the dark. Maybe revenge had cracked something open, something far more enduring. When they arrived home, Teresa checked the mailbox and handed Sarah a thick envelope. From the front desk of Sunbrook Commons. Inside, a handwritten note. "Dear Sarah Lane, we were moved by your presence this week and the bridge you've helped build. Would you be willing to speak at our intergenerational luncheon next month? We believe your story has something to teach us all." Sarah read it twice. Her fingers trembled. Sarah looked at the clock, then back at the envelope. 1,000 memories stirred like dust in sunlight. She whispered to herself, maybe this was the point all along, and quietly she nodded. Yes, she would speak. "They want me to speak in front of the whole town." Sarah stood in her living room, greeting card tucked in hand. The invitation to speak at Sunbrook Commons intergenerational luncheon glowed with possibility and nerves. Even after sharing her story online, she hadn't imagined facing a room full of neighbors, seniors, and teens alike. She pressed the card to her chest. "They want me to speak?" she whispered to herself. Teresa appeared at the doorway, wiping flour off her hands after baking muffins. "Mom," she began gently, "this is your moment." Her eyes glistened with pride. "Your words helped more than just Ryan. Now you can help the rest of us see each other again." Sarah swallowed. "I'm not a public speaker," she said, voice small. "What if I freeze up?" Teresa moved forward, placing a warm hand on her mother's shoulder. "Then you speak from the heart," she said. "You've carried enough for generations. This isn't about performance. It's about legacy." A soft creak announced Ryan's presence behind Teresa, clutching a notepad and pen. "Grandma, if you want, I can help you prep. I've been journaling at Sunbrook. I can organize key points." Sarah blinked, touched. The boy who once spat boomer was offering to stand beside her. It felt like sunrise after a long winter. She set the card down and nodded. "Thank you," she said softly. "I'd like that." 3 evenings later, they gathered at the kitchen table. Ryan typed bullet points into his laptop while Teresa brewed chamomile tea and muffins cooled nearby. Sarah breathed in the steeped aroma, watching Ryan pause and flip to page 2. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "Let's start with this. Respect isn't a favor, it's a right," he typed. She cleared her throat and began. "Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me here. I'm Sarah Lane, a grandmother, neighbor, and someone who learned that dignity must be defended, especially within our families. Ryan looked up. That's strong. She smiled. Let's hope it's enough. On the day, the community room hummed with quiet conversation. Tables arranged around a dais held flowers, teacups, and notepads. Sarah's fingers trembled beneath her speech notes as Teresa and Ryan stood supportively to one side. Sunbrook's director introduced her. Please welcome Ms. Sarah Lane, a woman who turned a family struggle into a lesson for us all. The applause warmed Sarah's chest. She stepped up, cleared her throat, and paused, letting the hush settle like a blanket before starting. She spoke of generational value, respect between age and youth, the power of boundaries wrapped in love. She shared a story of olive branches handed down in her family and how she froze, but then unfroze not just a fund, but a future that included forgiveness. Her voice wavered only once, when she described Ryan's first day volunteering, how he looked up, offering a pencil to a resident. She paused, scanning the audience, heads bowed, eyes glistening, hands folded. Then came the tears and the tissues, quiet claps, a hush of acknowledgement. When she finished, she closed her eyes for a heartbeat, then looked up. The room stood. Applause rippled out, soft at first, then full-throated. Chairs scraped, voices murmured praise. Ryan squeezed her hand. Teresa nodded with tears bright on her cheeks. Later, they stepped down from the dais. A woman approached Sarah with a tissue. Thank you, she said. Your words reminded me to see my grandchildren differently. Sarah exhaled deeply, breath coming at last. She felt both exposed and unburdened. Outside, a local news reporter approached, notepad poised. Would you consider leading a broader elder dignity campaign? Sarah paused. The afternoon sun warmed her face. She looked at Ryan, who offered a hopeful smile. She turned back to the reporter. Yes, she said, voice steady. Because respect is more than a lesson. It's a movement. As she returned to her seat, a council official stepped forward, extended a hand, and whispered, We'd like to meet about a citywide initiative. Sarah's heart fluttered. This was just the beginning. Suddenly, this was bigger than us. The buzz of post-event discussions still echoed through Sarah's kitchen as she sat at the head of the table, flanked by Teresa and Ryan. Notes, coffee cups, and folded invitations strewn before them, symbols of unfolding momentum. The late afternoon sun warmed the room, a quiet energy pulsating between generations. Across from her, Mrs. Alvarez, a neighbor who'd attended the luncheon, brought a stack of business cards. We want to help, Sarah. An initiative. To honor elders, bridge generations. Sarah inhaled sharply. Overwhelmed, she glanced at Teresa. Teresa nodded. We're all behind you. By early evening, dishes forgotten, they sketched an outline. Legacy Respect Project, a non-profit idea born from the speech's impact. Notes on programming, short-term school visits to senior centers. Monthly panels where teens and seniors spoke about life, listening, and dignity. Sarah felt her heart race. This was more ambitious than she'd imagined. I'm not... She hesitated. Not an organizer. Teresa leaned in gently. You're not alone. I can do logistics, volunteers, scheduling, liaison. You have the vision. Ryan tapped at his phone thoughtfully. And I can help with a website. Maybe share stories, post events, show how we're building this. He looked up, eyes bright. Sarah's breath caught. The grandson who once spat insults was now offering skills, eager to help. She swallowed doubt. This was bigger than her yard or her front porch. Okay, she said slowly, let's make this real. Night deepened while they drafted plans. Sarah wrote mission statements, celebrating age, cultivating respect, building bridges. She sketched ideas for programs, mentorship, intergenerational storytelling, dignity workshops, community luncheons. Teresa jotted down partner ideas, schools, church groups, local council. Ryan drafted domain names, respectlegacy.org, generationalvoices.com. Sarah felt a flutter, hope mixed with fear. Could she lead something like this? She shook her head, fighting insecurity. Imposter syndrome, her mind whispered, yet the experiences, support, and her values propelled her forward. This wasn't for accolades, it was for something deeper. They ended late, stepping outside into the crisp night. Fireflies drifted above the garden path where the fun debate had begun months ago. Sarah closed her eyes, breathing in fresh air. This was legacy in motion, a mission more lasting than any account or speech. Over the next week, momentum swelled. Emails came through neighborhood networks, offers of help from local boards, a council member's message expressing interest. Teresa forwarded them, eyes alight. "This is happening," she said. Ryan placed a hand over Sarah's. "You started it. We just built on it." Sarah squeezed his hand back. "We." They arranged a small launch gathering, a community brainstorming session at Sunbrook Commons. Sarah nervously stood before 20 people, ranging from teens to church leaders, sharing the vision. She spoke honestly, acknowledging both doubt and determination. When she finished, silence rippled, then hands weathered and youthful raised, pleading support. Sarah exhaled, relief and pride merging. This was no accident. It was communal purpose. As evening closed in, Teresa and Ryan helped pack up. Sarah studied the pile, sign-up sheets, flyers, volunteer cards. "We set the launch date," Teresa said, pointing to a calendar. "June 15th, just 6 weeks. Sarah nodded slowly, imagining the first event, an afternoon of stories bridging ages. It felt full and right. Ryan nudged her. "Press already emailed for quotes. They want to feature the launch." Sarah's chest tightened. That meant wider exposure, hitting local papers, maybe TV. She'd spoken publicly once, but stepping forward now as a leader felt daunting. Teresa wrapped an arm around her. "You've got this. We've built this together." Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, leaning into that truth. It was bigger now. Her legacy was unfolding through community, story, and action. Her phone buzzed one last time, a reporter's number flashing, asking, "Can we quote you on this initiative?" Sarah inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of promise on her voice. She tapped answer. National outlets want Grandma's story now. The newsroom lights felt too bright as Sarah settled into the leather chair, microphone clipped to her sweater. Across from her, a CNN journalist offered a reassuring nod. The red on-air dot blinked to life. "Miss Lane," the journalist began, voice warm, "this story has resonated so widely. How do you respond to your message striking a national chord?" Sarah drew in a breath, mind flicking through each step. Frozen fund, reconciliation, service, nonprofit. She spoke softly but clearly. "I think it's universal. At some point, every family needs to choose respect over convenience or entitlement. That's what this is about, teaching dignity alongside love." The host nodded. "Some viewers praise your courage. Others question if a grandmother should wield that much power. How do you respond?" Sarah paused. The question felt sharp in the glare. She closed her eyes briefly. "I'm not perfect," she said. "Maybe I pushed hard. But this began in my home first. It wasn't a publicity stunt. It was necessary. And yes, maybe you can say it was tough love. But isn't it worth it?" The host leaned forward. "You've been invited to speak on a national tour, across schools, communities. Are you prepared for that?" Sarah met his gaze. She glanced at Teresa in the green room mirror, her daughter's steady face telling her to keep going. "I didn't plan this," Sarah said, voice steady but vulnerable. "But if it helps others build bridges, yes, I'm willing, with boundaries. I need to honor the purpose first." That evening, messages flooded in, heartfelt thank yous from across the country, but also critical emails accusing her of overreach or grandmother gone rogue. The spectrum surprised her. At home, Teresa sorted through printed comments. "Look," she said softly, "here's one. I owe my mom an apology. And she needs to back off. This isn't her business." Sarah inhaled, relief and doubt tacking her chest. The praise was warming. The skepticism stung. Ryan set down his laptop. "This is big, Grandma. You're helping people talk again, but sounds like some fear it." Sarah nodded. I felt that too. They gathered in the living room, walls lined with awards and family photos, a testament to rooted beginnings. People were listening now, too many maybe. She felt her pulse echo in her ears. Teresa cleared her throat. We should build some guardrails. Decide what you'll say, where, when. Protect your peace. Sarah drained her teacup and set it down firmly. You're right, I need a plan. Over the next days, they drafted a media kit, clear talking points, mission statement, a schedule. Sarah rehearsed speeches in front of Teresa and Ryan. They outlined safe zones. No politics, no sensationalism, Sarah insisted. In the kitchen one evening, Sarah stared out the window, catching reflections of flags fluttering across TV screens. She touched the nonprofit's brochure in her hands, logo, website, purposes, all grown from her living room. The scale of it unsettled her. Ryan knelt beside her. You know, this is what belief looks like. You built this. Sarah swallowed the lump in her throat. She looked at him, grateful. I'm proud of us. They reviewed their calendar, school talks, community forums, a televised special. She'd agreed to the tour with provisions, limited dates, no overnight travel, Teresa traveling as chaperone, counselor on call. One afternoon, an email arrived marked high priority. Sarah opened it. Major sponsor. We'd like to provide funding, significant support, if we can shape messaging and branding. Her breath stuttered. She stepped back from the screen as Teresa and Ryan jumped. Sarah read it again, support that could launch them nationwide. But with strings. She looked at Teresa, at Ryan. The weight in her chest reminded her why this began. Not for fame, nor money, but for respect, dignity, and family. Sarah closed the email and whispered, We'll need terms. On screen, that logo glowed, and soon they would decide whose voice this mission would carry. They want control in exchange for cash. Sarah stared at the email from the sponsor, fingers tightening around her tea. The offer was generous, but the fine print unsettled her. Branding rights, messaging control, logo placement front and center. It read like more than support. It felt like a takeover. At the kitchen table, Teresa leaned over to read the screen. They want the project to look like theirs, she said, voice low. Branded colors, taglines, even event names. Across the room, Ryan watched quietly, tucked behind his laptop. He looked between them, confusion across his face. So, they want to own the message? He asked. Sarah exhaled. Not just own it. They'd steer it. She set the cup down firmly. Respect is non-negotiable, and neither is autonomy. Teresa nodded. We need clarity. If they ask for that much control, it could compromise everything you stand for. Ryan frowned thoughtfully. But I guess if they fund the whole thing, does it matter? Yes, Sarah answered softly, immediacy in her gaze. Because this started as something pure. I can't let it become someone else's agenda. That afternoon, she arranged a video call. Just her, Teresa, and the sponsor representatives. The screen flickered to life, showing two marketing managers, smiles practiced. Ms. Lane, one began, we love the movement, we just want to be visible. It's a partnership. Sarah answered easily, we appreciate the offer, but our message needs to stay ours. We welcome support, but not ownership. There was silence. The manager cleared his throat. We could dial back the branding controls, he offered. Maybe just a logo on collateral? Sarah paused. Her pulse hammered. The offer had tilted, support without control. Next, the second manager added, only if the logo is smaller and we stick to agreed key messages. Their tone was reasonable, but the subtext remained. Control over content. Sarah's eyes flicked to her mug, then to a mental flashback. Ryan's hurt face when he'd called her boomer. She'd frozen the account because words cut her. She resolved then, dignity over insult. Now, dignity stood again at the crossroads. The room felt narrow, her resolve broadening. Respect is non-negotiable, she said clearly. Yes to funding, no to control. If that works, let's move forward. If not, let's part now. With respect. Her voice dropped just enough to convey authority, calm, and unwavering purpose. Teresa and Ryan nodded. silent solidarity behind her. Another pause. Then the manager exhaled. Understood. We respect your terms. We'll reassess branding guidelines, reduce our presence. We'll keep it supportive, not directive. Sarah felt her chest release tension. Thank you, she said. That means the world. They wrapped the call with pleasantries, and the screen went dark. Teresa reached forward and squeezed Sarah's hand. Ryan slid over to help document the new agreement on his tablet. The three of them sat in warm quiet, adrenaline settling into relief. Later that evening, Sarah stood at her desk reviewing the sponsor's revised proposal. Clear boundaries, council rights reserved, project-led events. She circled, initialed, and saved the document. "This is right," she whispered. Ryan looked up from his phone. "I feel like we just saved something important." Sarah smiled, teary. "We did." That night, as the household settled into peace, Sarah felt the mission, that spark born at Sunbrook, glow in a new light. It was bigger now, but still hers and theirs. Early next morning, the sponsor's CEO called directly. Sarah listened as his voice echoed across the line. "We're impressed by your conviction. We want you to help lead a national advisory board, elder shareholders guiding the movement. Would you consider serving?" Sarah's breath caught. This offer would thrust her into the national spotlight, far beyond anything she'd imagined. She glanced at Teresa and Ryan, waking to their own dawning understanding. Lines had been drawn, and now the invitation was to shape the borders. Sarah closed her eyes and picked up the receiver. She whispered, "Tell me more." Skilled or not, she knew this was her moment. Not to sell out, but to step in. They wanted a face, but I became the board. Sarah S. Tude at the center of Sunbrook Commons, sunlight filtering through large windows. A modest crowd had gathered, seniors, teenagers, supporters. She clasped Teresa's and Ryan's hands. Her heart fluttered with purpose as a nearby banner read, "Elder Youth Advisory Council Launch." A quiet hum of conversation filled the room. Sarah inhaled deeply, stepping up to the podium. Her voice held only a hint of tremble. "Thank you all," she began. "Today marks the first day of a vision that began with a frozen fund and a frozen heart, but has thawed into something far greater." She paused, glancing at Ryan standing on the dais behind her. Proud and grounded, she continued, "This isn't just a program, it's a promise." The crowd leaned in as she unveiled the structure. Elders and youth working side by side, sharing stories, mentoring, co-creating events. Not just teens helping seniors, but mutual respect weaving generations together. Beside her, Ryan stepped forward to speak. He adjusted the microphone, voice steady. "As part of the Youth Advisory Panel, I'll work with seniors on event planning, tech help, and understanding each other's worlds." He paused. "This space helped me learn respect, not just because of the scholarship program, but because I experienced it." Background applause rippled softly. Sarah watched his face, pride swelling. Later, off stage, Teresa hugged her. "Look at what you led," she whispered. "Look at him." Daughter-in-law Claire stood nearby, smiling, eyes warm. She slipped an arm around Teresa. "Family," she said simply. Sarah felt tears, hard-won and healing. She tucked them away. They moved into the lounge, mingling. Seniors thanked them. One offered Sarah a framed photo of her grandmother's first center visit. Another told Ryan, "Your grandma held firm, for all our dignity." He nodded, humbled. Then came the handshake line for the Elder Youth Advisory Council. Sarah greeted each elder, their voices tight with gratitude. Then she watched Ryan greet his teenage peers, sincere, attentive. Together, they signed the council charter, a document created by elders and youth to guide respectful partnership. Sarah's signature went first, followed by Ryan's. His pen trembled slightly as he sealed their shared promise. Sarah felt the weight of legacy in that ink. Afterward, they posed for a group photo, 3 generations at its heart. As cameras flashed, Teresa straightened Sarah's cardigan. She murmured, "You did it." Sarah nodded, vision widening beyond one household. That evening, at home, The three sat around the kitchen table again. War stories swapped for hopeful laughter. Sarah poured tea, glancing at a photo of her mother. We did this. For her, for us. For them, Ryan grinned, fingers tracing the council charter. And the fund? He asked. Sarah nodded. It's unfrozen. She slid an envelope across the table. A restored college fund notice with updated terms and a check to restart. Ryan exhaled, relief soft on his face. He leaned across, hugging her. Thank you for trust and for believing in change. Sarah closed her eyes at his shoulder, tears slipping. Later that night, Sarah stood at her porch, staring at the sky. The calendar on the door read Mother's Day. Tomorrow. A breeze stirred. She whispered, voice caught between gratitude and longing. Happy Mother's Day, Mom. The porch light dimmed. Night deepened, and her legacy glowed in the quiet promise of tomorrow. Mother's Day dawn broke gentle, different now. Dawn's soft light warmed the plaza in front of Sunbrook Commons. A semicircle of folding chairs held family, neighbors, teens, and seniors. A banner read, Mother's Day Milestone Celebration. Sarah stood among them, heart buoyed by purpose and love. Teresa held a watering can. Ryan clutched a microphone, cheeks rosy in the morning air. Even Claire joined, holding their young daughter's hand. It felt real, family woven together. Sarah approached the center participants. No podium today, only grass beneath her feet. She steadied herself and began, voice quiet but strong. Today is more than celebration. It's full circle. We began this journey in conflict. Now we gather in connection. She gestured to Ryan. My grandson will share something important. He stepped forward, posture steady yet humble, took the mic. Sarah took a breath as he spoke. I want to say to everyone, and especially to Grandma, that I am sorry. I used disrespect as a shield, but because of her, because of this program, I learned what it means to listen first. His eyes flicked to Sarah. I love you, Grandma. Tears glistened, but she managed to reply, I love you too, in a voice that trembled with joy. Teresa and Claire joined, holding the child. From behind them came steps. Ryan's little sister, shy, carrying a velvet box. She offered it to Sarah with careful hands. Inside lay a plaque, in honor of Sarah Lane building bridges across generations. The gathering broke into applause. Sarah accepted the gift, voice thick. Thank you. This isn't just mine. It's ours. The applause quieted for the next part. Planting a sapling, they moved together to a small mound of earth. Sarah pressed the spade into the soil, kneeling to dig. Ryan dropped the tree into place. Teresa poured water. Claire circled the watering can again. As they covered roots with dirt, Sarah placed her hand atop the young trunk. It's for Robert, she whispered, the late husband and partner in countless memories, and for all beginnings. The tree stood slender, promising shade and renewal. Neighbors helped tidy, offering smiles and nods. A woman pinned a pink ribbon to Sarah's sweater, symbol, the speaker explained, of intergenerational love. Sarah felt whole, tears falling free. They lined up for photos, hands held, arms around shoulders, laughter soft and bright. Her granddaughter giggled when lifted into Sarah's arms. Sarah rocked her gently, breath catching at new life woven among generations. Later, at a homemade brunch under dappled shade, Sarah raised her teacup. To family, in blood or by bond, to respect that builds, never breaks. They clinked cups, warmth spreading. The sun climbed. Sarah glanced at the tree, newly rooted. She pictured it years from now, standing tall, limbs broad, offering shade they all could rest under, a legacy visible. Amid the crowd, Mrs. Alvarez called, "Roots have taken hold!" And everyone laughed. Sarah understood. This tree was more than symbolism. It was promise embodied. Her daughter leaned in, whispering, "You did it, Mom." Sarah smiled, feeling every high and low distilled into a moment of spectacular love. Later still, they gathered on the porch. Sarah looked at the yard she'd guarded, the home she'd reclaimed, and the family she'd formed. The center and tree behind them echoed that new life. She squeezed Ryan's hand. He smiled, no speech needed. She looked at Teresa, at Claire and her daughter, each one a leaf on this growing branch. In the warm breeze, Sarah felt rooted, respect restored, dignity regained, love renewed. She closed her eyes and whispered to the breeze, "This is just the beginning." The leaves rustled as if answering, "Yes, it is." Legacy isn't loud, it's lasting. Sunlight streamed softly through the tall windows of Sunbrook Commons community room, illuminating the lively activity within. Tables lined the space, adorned with canvas panels and paint palettes, laughter twining with soft jazz from a corner speaker. The mural project, each panel depicting intergenerational unity, had become a living testament to what had begun months ago. Deep into the morning, Sarah sat in her favorite chair by the window, a steaming mug of tea in hand. The fragrant chamomile warmed her fingers and heart. She watched Ryan kneel beside an elderly participant, gently demonstrating brushstrokes on a shared canvas. Mutual instruction in strokes of color and respect. He looked up at the woman, her eyes bright, and smiled. Sarah closed her eyes, breath slow and content. Teresa drifted over, carrying a basket of thank you letters addressed to Sarah. "Are you ready?" she asked softly, placing them in Sarah's lap. Teresa's expression radiated pride and love. "People keep asking about the account, but they say the real gift was what we built here." Sarah nodded, her gaze drifting back to the mural. Written across bright skies in the artwork was a phrase painted by a volunteer teen. "Respect grows in shared spaces." Tears pricked her eyes, not for herself, but for the truth in the words. Money had lit this fire, but it was respect and connection that kept it burning. She opened the first letter. "Dear Ms. Lane, thank you for including us. My grandson and I painted side by side today. He taught me to try new colors, and I taught him the joy of trying." Another, "Your granddaughter's gratitude overflows. What you funded grows lives." Daughter Teresa smiled. "They see it. They feel it." Sarah took a careful sip of tea. "The scholarship's been reinstated, but that's not what matters." Teresa raised both eyebrows. "It's the dignity that matters." Sarah placed the letters aside and exhaled thoughtfully. "Yes." Silence settled in the warm air. Behind them, the mural chatter rose and ebbed. Ryan stood and lifted a tray of brushes. He paused by Sarah. "Can I get you more tea?" She smiled. "That'd be lovely, thank you." He hurried off, stepping confidently now, no longer a teenager burdened by conflict, but a young man rooted in generosity. Sarah watched him go, watching dignity ripple through him as it had through her. Revenge had sparked this movement, but it had erupted into something infinitely more powerful. Later, when Ryan returned, he knelt and whispered, "Granny, could we add one more phrase about family and respect?" Sarah felt her heart swell, honored. "Absolutely." They approached the mural together, and in neat block letters they added, "Family entitlement. Respect equals legacy." Seniors applauded. Teens murmured approval. Sarah wiped a tear. The day wound down. Ryan helped tidy assemblage areas. Teresa read thank you notes aloud quietly. Sunlight softened and heated escaped, but the energy lingered. As activity paused, Sarah reflected. The frozen fund had been a catalyst, but the real legacy wasn't money. It was trust, boundaries, purpose. The fund served its purpose, igniting a movement that restored dignity to her family and community. It had given her a platform and humility. She closed her eyes, chest calm. No more bitterness, no more retribution, just abiding purpose. A volunteer rolled in the final panel, unveiling a sea of painted hands. Elder and youth joined in unity. Tickled applause arose. The painting marked the mural's end and their shared bloom. Sarah rose, walking across the room. She laid her hand on the finished mural. Her fingertips brushed the paint. "We did this," she whispered. The mural shimmered under the afternoon glow. She walked outside to the hallway, the canvas of color behind her. Through the doorway, she glimpsed the community's bustle, afternoon tea, bridged conversations, resumption of life with dignity alive. Sarah returned to her window seat. She lifted the last letter. "You didn't shut off funds. You Turn them into something bigger. She smiled, the words settling warm against her chest. As shadows lengthened, she placed the letter on the windowsill and gazed back at the mural through the glass. Colors intertwined. Hands met across generations. The camera panned slowly out from Sarah by the window to the sprawling mural at Sunbrook Commons. Families, teens, and seniors united in painted unity. The final image reads, softly shining, "Respect is the legacy we leave."